Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Superman and Lois. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, before we even get to the meats and potatoes of the episode, I thought it was so interesting where it's like, alright, we've had over a month of silence from Lex. He's been free, but we don't know what he's going to end up doing. And obviously it ends up being that situation where everyone in the reprieve of everything that they've been through this season ends up kind of taking steps moving forward. We end up having John Henry and Lana finally go out on a date, which are like, yes, finally. Chrissy finds out that she's pregnant, and Kyle's happy about it, and she's happy about it. He ends up having to tell Lana, which, I mean, kudos on him for not trying to keep this a secret. You know, it's like, right, you keeping the whole you and Chrissy being a thing blew up in your face big time. It's like, right, this is something just as big, if not bigger, so you need to. Which also complicates things, too, especially when Kyle's like, right, I know you always wanted another kid, but it's like, hey, congratulations, you are a good father, and at the very least, let me spoil the hell out of this child, which he's like, that's what I would want. So she's happy for him, but it's also complicated because it's happening so soon after their divorce, and him and Chrissy haven't been dating that long. I'm also going to jump ahead. Kyle did the most dickish things. Like, for one, this is supposed to be like a Smallville event. I get you want to make a nice moment and everything, but you hijacked them. For one, Coach is already pissed because everything's gotten like, his career and everything's like gotten sidetracked because of John, which he's totally being a dick towards John. But Kyle doing what he did was a dick move. It's like, you don't hijack something big like that. That's not just, it's meant to be kind of like a town gathering thing. You don't hijack it for your moment, especially in front of your ex-wife. It's like blow after blow after blow. Oh, not only did I find out you were cheating on me, then I had to make the hard decision of getting a divorce. And we're always going to be obviously intertwined and interconnected. Because even Lana's wondering, like, did we only stay together? Like, were we only really together because of our history? Like, you know, it's like they had their happy moments, but, you know, it probably didn't she probably didn't necessarily feel that spark anymore. So it's, you know, and now it's like, cool, she had to watch you not only, now your girlfriend is now your fiance who's also having your child. It's like, it's a lot to handle. It's like, once again, they haven't been divorced that long. So it's still like, yeah, she's going out with, John Henry, but they've only been on a one date. They finally had sex, but it's still like, come on. So there's that element of it. Obviously, John's doing everything, to get in good graces with the coach again, but he's like, oh, I will never forgive you. And it's like, you would hoping, and he pulling off the dickish move of like, I want to give it to special thanks to someone who's put in all this work, Jimmy! And everyone was congratulating Jimmy, and you could see John there like seething, and the coach is looking at him like, yeah, you thought, yeah, I wanted you to think it was going to be about you. It's like, this man is petty. You're an adult, and you're being so petty towards a teenager. He was going through some stuff that wasn't even 100% his fault. Because, I mean, to be fair, no one ever really knew about the Candace of it all. Because so he's still suffering from that. Because the only people who know about it being Candace is the family. So, like, everyone outside of that doesn't know. I'm sure the Langs know about that now. I'm sure, like, Lana and Lana, well, I can't say the Langs, but like Lana, I'm sure, and Kyle know about that, but still, it's like, oh, you poor guy. It's also the episode of a lot of people getting some. At first, you're like, oh, Sam's got a girlfriend. Then I did think it was kind of suspicious. Like, why the hell is she? I was like, oh, they could. I mean, it's been 30 days and we saw when they first met up, but it's like, well, we don't know how long in that time frame they were, together. He's like, oh, we've been on a few dates. But so I'm like, but still, I mean, I guess it's like, right, you're older. Why would you take things like too slow? It's like, hey, we met. I want you to meet my grandchildren, which I do love that he introduces Nada. And I mean, because everything they've been through and everything, it's like, right, just without even missing the beat. It's like, oh, I wanted to introduce you to my grandchildren. This is Jordan, this is Jonathan, and this is Natalie. I was like, I don't know why. I was like, that's really sweet, Sam. It's like, yeah, you were practically my grandchild. We might not be like blood related on this world, but you were just as much my grandchild. You know, so it's like, yeah, and for John and Jordan, it's like she's just as much their sister as she would have been on like the world that the Earth they're originally from. But We also had Clark and Lois, shacking up this episode, which, it's like, right, is it that time? It's like, yeah, when? Like, right now, right here. And they end up going to Talro's villa, which I thought was pretty dope. And they do their thing, And I love it's like, right, we're going to a vacation in Italy. Oh, yeah, because of, we found your Uncle Talro left us a villa. It's like, that we could use. It's like, oh, how'd you find out about it? DOD, the lawyers from the DOD. It's like, yeah, we don't really need to tell the kids all the details about how we just shagged and stuff. It's like, right, you're trying to bribe us. It's like, no, but honestly, yes, we are. And Jonathan's like, yeah, it's fine, and it's totally working. So, yeah, let's go to Italy. I mean, obviously, there's still that animosity between him and Jordan. They're not full-blown animosity, but there's complications. And I love Sam's perspective of, like, right, as a parent who constantly made mistakes, don't let that anger fester. Because he knows, first and foremost, like, obviously it complicated his relationship with Lois as she got older. It also it led to Lucy literally joining a cult of just, like, he really didn't handle things the best way when they were growing up. So it's like, right, someone who's made plenty of mistakes, you don't want to be the one who ends up, you don't want that to fester and turn into something it doesn't need to. So, and I think Clark took a lot of that at, so when he's hanging out with the fam, he, tried to, like, hey, maybe we save money on, we pack light, and me and Jordan can take you. It's like, well, I could use your talents? It's like, I can use my talents? It's like, yeah. But it's like, wait, I can use them for like a vacation, something stupid like that, but not saving people? It's like, well, yes, because what is but you're the one that wanted to, show off and stuff like that. But it's like, yes, like, at the heart of it, what is it that you're using your powers for? He's like, you're the one that want to take photos and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you truly want to use your powers to help people, none of that other stuff, the fame, the attention, none of that will matter. That will kind of go away. Because it's like, and I also love the heart-to-heart that they had too. I think this is kind of a moment they both needed after everything, when it's like, right, you've been treating Sarah badly. He's like, I get what it's like to kind of have your heart broken. And it's like you're kind of lashing out against someone. And he's like, the difference is that you'll realize in retrospect that you took a small thing and it bombarded into something it didn't need to. He's like, and at the end of the day, the person you're going to end up hurting most is yourself, because he's the one that's seething in all this rage and anger. Like, he's complicating things between him and Sarah. Like, because for him, it's like, at the end of the day, I was kind of upset because she wasn't as sad as I was about our breakup. Like, it felt like she wasn't still as hurt as I was. It felt like she was kind of moving on. That's why he had such a chip on his shoulder with her kind of being happy and stuff. Because it's, I get it. We all get the whole thing of, like, right, a breakup and stuff like that and how much it can stay with you. But Clark was like, is that even really even true anymore? And he's like, no. And he ended up apologizing to her. It's like, right, I've got to, like, worry about fixing a lot on me. Because she's like, maybe we can't be friends right now. And he's like, yeah, maybe. But, who knows what the future holds for them. But for him, it's like, maybe, I'll kind of do what you're doing here. She's like, being a waitress. He's like, yeah, maybe something like that. Kind of starting over, because he realizes, like, it is wrong the way, like, he has been treating her this way, like being so dismissive of her. It's just like, what, right? You let this bottle fester for so long. And it is that thing of, it was something so small and it wasn't really that big of a deal, but no, you snowballed it into so much more once your feelings kind of get in a mix and stuff like that. So I think it's such an interesting juxtaposition, and I think that's the point. Like, right, the reprieve after, like, everything that's going on this season, especially with the stuff they've set up with Lex. But then you also, you have all this stuff where you're like, okay, we're picking up with everyone's lives, and it plays into that duality of Superman of, like, right, here's all this Clark Kent stuff, then the Superman stuff hits later. When we find out that Sam's date is actually working for Lex, which immediately I was like, whoa. I didn't pay attention to her name. I don't think it was, but I was like, she's not. And even she had a different name, it could have been, but I was like, she's not supposed to be that's not supposed to be Mercy, is it? Like, not unless that's supposed to be like, because I know I think they're twins. And, Okay, so I was looking into it. It seems like maybe the Arrowverse is the only one that's made them siblings. Like I said, they might have been twins, but I know they definitely were siblings. Doesn't seem like that's the case in the comics. It just seems like Otis was just like a dude that worked at LexCorp, and she was, well, the top tier person who worked at LexCorp, but it doesn't seem like they had any relation. Just a little I Googled. Maybe I didn't read deep enough, but I was just wondering if that's supposed to be Mercy or not. And once again, has she always, if that is Mercy, if she is Mercy, because it feels like that would be a Mercy job to do. She is one of the people Lex trusts the most. And like I said, that's just an interesting dichotomy if that is the case, because I brought it up previously. It's like, well, he met Otis in prison. So does that mean he already met Mercy? Does he meet her afterwards? That was my question. And cause we just got introduced to her this episode, so we don't know what her circumstances are. But I was like, it makes sense if that was Mercy. But yeah, they kidnapped Sam because it's like, right, we're removing all the blocks in our way, all the walls that are in our way to get to Lois. It's like, cool, we're removing the DOD by getting rid of Sam, moving him out of the picture. Next was removing Clark. And the moment we saw they took like the device from Clark, I was like, oh God, they're going to call Clark into a trap, because he's like, yeah, I'm ready to kill Clark. So we rewind those 30 some days, and because we had seen previously, like, oh, they're feeding Bizarro now. They brought in a full cow and everything. So we had that. And then there's the whole situation of, we pick up, luckily Otis didn't get killed. Granted, Bizarro bit off his ear and was about to chow on him, until Lex shot him. And it's like, oh, he's supposed to, I thought you killed him. It's like, I thought I did too. Shot him again. I was like, what's going on here? I was like, can he not die anymore? And then the moment Lex picked up his hand, was like, and saw it bubbling beneath the surface, he's like, you're growing. I was like, shut up. I was like, shut up. I was like, there's no way. They're not doing what I think they're doing. And then he was just talking. I was like, they're doing Doomsday. Because that's funny, because a lot of people, some people thought when they were doing Bizarro last week, when he was still in the suit and everything, they're like, oh, is this going to be Doomsday? It was like, no. And everyone was surprised, like, oh, they did Bizarro. It's like, funny enough, they did both. I don't know if they planned it that far in advance that they always had a plan to do this, or was that just something they came up with when writing, did they always have this plan, or was it just being like in the process of writing season 3? They were like, now we're going to carry that over and make it into a, because I mean, I think it plays into the fact is we didn't get much Bizarro last season. Obviously he's in like a couple episodes of last season, but obviously he ended up not being the main threat. So I think it's I was like, dude, because I'm sure his circumstances change from different continuities, but it felt like they honestly did a combination of the show Krypton and the movie Man of Steel Batman v Superman with this. Because obviously in Batman v Superman, Lex uses, that has to be on purpose. They had to have done that storyline on purpose by making it so that Lex makes Doomsday. It's like, it almost feels like you're like, well, this is how the movies did it. This is how we're going to do it. See, it's interesting. But instead of it being Zod, it never crossed my mind to think, I mean, because I guess because he was, I don't know why that never even crossed my mind of like, maybe other people pieced it together that they could do a Doomsday thing. It never even crossed my mind, because I'm like, right, Batman, Man of Steel / Batman v Superman, what did they do? They used Zod's body to make, so I was like, yeah, you have a dead Kryptonian here, so, it's applicable. But I was also talking about Krypton because I think it was applicable to Doomsday in the comics as well. Once again, I'm not well versed, but Doomsday in Krypton, if you never saw it, like obviously he was a Kryptonian that they experimented on to make him into the ultimate weapon. What Lex was doing to him in this is exactly what happened to him in Krypton, where they basically would kill him with everything possible, because every time he would die, he'd come back stronger, and that thing could no longer kill him. It's like, oh, kill him by poison. He's now invulnerable to poison. Oh, kill him by fire. Now he's immune to fire. So on and so forth, because that's what's supposed to be Doomsday's things of like adaptability. So I think that's true to him in the comics, but obviously the first time I really seen something really dive into that was Krypton, because I don't really remember Doomsday's circumstances really being like that in Smallville. To be fair, it's been a couple years since when I went back through Smallville in its entirety, so I don't remember if that's the case. But I was like, yo, they're doing Doomsday and making I was like, that's amazing. Holy crap. I was like, I love that. And making it makes it sadder too that oh, the Doomsday of this world was made from Bizarro, especially considering we kind of got to know, not kind of, we got to see his story as Superman, what things were like on his world, and just how he never had an opportunity to make things right with his family. And now it's like, right, he was turned into this monster. And Lex is like, oh, let me make you stronger so that nothing could ever kill you again. It's like, right, death is a scary thing. And maybe on some level, you know, it's like, right, that instinct in any being that nothing ever wants to die. And now that he's back, I mean, I'm sure, Bruno had no idea what kind of monster they were actually festering this entire time. The sad thing is, you know, the monster he ended up creating in a moment of trying to save the woman he loved, and what happened in the end ended up losing her regardless. So it's like, was it even really worth it in the end? All the sacrifices, all the people you experimented on making this monster. And obviously, if you're unaware too about Doomsday circumstances, he's still heralded as the first person. I mean, well, of course he would be, but I think that's true. Like, he's the first person in the comics to ever kill Superman. So I was like, so they're going to do the death to Superman once again. Like, especially considering the Snyderverse kind of like did that. It's like, dude, that's wild for them to do that. Because he hadn't looked monstrous at first until like the moment the kryptonite went in, I was like, and there's the spikes that's going to be on his body. I was like, okay, especially when they went up, like subdermal, when they start going inside of his skin, I'm like, okay, that's where this is. And so Clark, you know, once again, that dope shot of just him in space because he's trying to find out where Sam is, and then like he like goes back home and finds Lex there. He's like, right. He blames, once again, going in on Lois, saying like, all right, it's Lois's fault. I told her I didn't do it. But it's like, there's no way Lois was going to like, first and foremost, you are the monster that you are. Like, don't, like that. And that's why even Clark was like, don't pretend like you're some martyr. It's like, you appear like, because you're petty and vengeful, where it's like, I told her I didn't do it. But it's like, you expect her to believe that, considering all the evil that you do? That it's like, why would we believe you? Like, oh, we finally, but also it's like, maybe the justification is like, right, they were never able to get him on anything. So, hey, we finally got you on something. You slipped up. But it's like, who could have accounted for onomatopoeia? No one saw that coming, but it's like, you know, I mean, especially because it's like, it's a different thing of like, her, like, unless, because they became, associated with Pia and her abilities, that's the only reason why they ended up finding out about Lex having nothing to do with, Moxie's death, you know? It's like, right, I warned her to back down, but she didn't. She wanted to keep writing. And now it's like, cool. Now you're going to pay the price. And he's telling Doomsday, when you're done with him, bring me his heart. I was like, dude. I was like, is this really going to go down? Especially when they were just making plans as a family. I mean, especially with everything going on with Lois's, cancer, then her mastectomy, and it's just like everything felt good. Like I said, I think that was also the point of like set up all this good that's happening in Clark's life, and everything's in a better place after everything they went through this season, and to have this be like the tail end of the episode of him going toe to toe with Doomsday, and you know when he got thrown to Smallville, and Jordan kind of wants to step in, but he's like, don't. And like, let me be the one to fight this, because it's like, this has to be like, you're not ready for this type of fight. And dude, especially with I was like, how is this going? I was like, because at first it seemed like Clark might be on the winning end of things. But then also I was like, well, it's Doomsday, so it probably won't go that way too long, especially when they're underwater. He freezes them, pushes him out, and it's like, right, he's about to break free. So I was like, what is Clark going to do? Clark ends up like spiking him on top of a building. And it's like, Jesus. So you're like, damn, dude. And especially for Clark, that's the first time he's ever had to kill someone too. And I was like, okay, so I was like, is Doomsday actually dead? Is this going to like change people's minds of Superman? Because it's like, yeah, we've never seen him killing. Like, I mean, this is a monster, so we're going to cut him a little slack, but it's still the thing of like, oh, like Clark killed someone, but then it's like, nah, it got up and it attacked him. The whole subway sequence where it's just like bashing his head against like the wall, and then like that moment where he's charging towards it and it hits the, like, it like lights because of the electricity from the third rail of the track, I'm assuming, like, it like lit up on fire just as he was like beating the crowd. You're like, dude, are they really about to do? And he's pounding on Clark's chest, and Jordan can't even hear his heartbeat anymore as they like jettison in the sky. I was like, dude, what's going to happen? And Clark's just thinking about his family. He's like, no, I can't die, and fights back. And I'm like, they land on the moon. I'm like, we really about to settle this on the moon. And then I was like, because I wasn't paying attention to the time of the episode, he pulls out the spikes from his arm. I was like, are we doing this? And they charge towards each other and cut the title card. I was like, oh, because I knew it was going to be on a cliffhanger, but I thought it was going to be like a Superman is dead cliffhanger. It's like, well, we saw in Metropolis, he grabbed Clark, and like everyone saw, they've never seen Superman on the losing end like that, especially like that symbolism of a little kid wearing a Superman shirt watching what's happening. You could even hear people in the background like kind of, oh my God, let him go. And it's just like, because let's not forget, Clark is the only superhero in this world. So the world didn't just lose one superhero. It lost its only superhero, its champion. So it's like, dude, that's wild. And for it to come down to this, it's like, especially like if that fight goes the way it, typically goes, he's going to be on the moon. I mean, I guess like maybe John Henry would have to him and Natalie would have to suit up and go after them, But also I think that speaks volumes about the whole circumstances too when you think about right, in the confines of the episode, it's only a couple minutes. In the grand scheme of real time in that fight, it was most likely only a couple minutes too, but are they going to deal with it kind of like they did with it? I don't think they're going to do the Batman v Superman of oh, well, let's kill Doomsday. I think they might keep him around. I don't know. Lex is probably going to have his. I don't know how that's going to play out. It might be how do you deal with something like that? The only thing I could think of is well, it hasn't come up in the show so far. I don't think. Obviously, they utilize it in Supergirl, but I don't think they've utilized it in this show. I was about to say the Phantom Zone. Not unless that ends up being what they're doing. So, I already brought this up last episode that the show was renewed for a 4th season. It's assumed that it's going to be the final season, but it's unclear considering it hasn't been officially stated. You'd assume that would be the case, but once again, we don't know for sure. We do know there's going to be some complications next season because a lot of the main cast or series regulars are going to be relegated to guest and special guest starring roles. I know that includes John Henry Irons, and I think that includes Lana. I don't know if that what that fully means for I'd assume that include maybe Chrissy, Kyle, Sarah, and Natalie as well. I'd assume I think it's out there but I haven't really looked into it too much, but I saw an article referencing that. I think it's just a budgetary thing of just I mean, that's just they're not going to be in, which is kind of a bummer. Doesn't mean they're not going to be in the final season. If the next season, well, at least we'll say it as that. I mean, it feels like it could be set up for a final season. I mean, especially with just everything, this being one of the only DC shows left. Other than this, obviously, I haven't watched the final episode of Gotham Knights, but I brought up last week, that sadly was canceled. Doom Patrol still got its final 6 episodes. That's probably going to drop sometime this summer. And then there's the Superman animated series on Adult Swim coming out next month. But that's live action DC TV shows. This is the last one officially stating that's coming back with a new season, which I was just reading too is only going to be 10 episodes. So I'm sure they're cutting a lot back just to save money, and what that means for the final season, what that looks like, I don't know. I mean, obviously we have a lot more, we're going, Lex is probably going to be a lot more prevalent in the next season, potentially. Once again, the big question then becomes well, what about the doomsday of it all? If something happens to Clark, is that going to force Jordan to step up, or is Clark going to come out of that fight severely wounded but not killed, and Jordan's got to step up in that capacity? Because John Henry Irons and Natalie are potentially moving to Metropolis for them trying to build their company Steelworks, because they're going to be working with the DoD even more on producing weapons and stuff and tech for them. So that's their way to kind of, I think, right around John Henry's not popping up. it's not like John Henry Irons was in every episode regardless, but still. I know some people were wondering, like, if we'd ever get him in his more traditional circumstances and, like, the full-blown, like, silver, like, skin. Because his circumstances are, I don't know, I don't think it applies, I don't think it works like Nate's circumstances of being Commander Steel. Like, I don't, or was it Citizen Steel? I forgot his moniker. But I don't know if he kind of like steel up like that. I don't know if that's how that works, but it kind of looks similar like that in the comics. I don't know if it works like that in the comics though. So I don't know if we'd probably get that if he still stay in the suit even next season. I don't know if you'd get that by the end. Like I said, nothing's saying officially that this is the final season, but it's kind of implied because with everything going on at DC and Warner Brothers and the CW, so you're just like, right, it feels like this would be the final outing of the show. Which, at the bare minimum, at least, if this is going to be the final season, let them know ahead of time so they can write it in a way that it can give the show a proper send-off. So, I'm so curious to see what happens next season. And once again, if it will officially be the final season, I'd rather it be, like, considered the final season. That way they can end it the way they want to, rather than them being like, maybe we'll get a season 5 if we're lucky. So, we'll ultimately have to wait to see how this plays out. I'm so excited for season 4, like where we're going to pick up in the aftermath of that cliffhanger. What state is the world going to be in depending on how that situation plays out? How is that family going to handle itself? Like there have been situations where like, hey, Clark's been in a dire situation, but he's always come back. This might be a situation he might not come back from, which obviously we know the return of Superman's, the death of Superman and how that all plays out in the long run, sure, but still for them in this moment, especially after everything where it's like, right, they had to worry about Lois dying and it probably, it's that complicated thing of like, I was worried about dying and what the future might hold for me. Never crossed my mind that I'd have to worry about you. Like, once again, he's been in tough situations, but he's always managed to come out on top. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see what season 4 has in store for us when it eventually comes out. I'm sure that also, is being affected by the writer strike too. So we have no idea. I'm sure that's going to push back anything for that as well. So that has to be considered. So, but really that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good